All right, hello and welcome to our last episode of Athletics for Life this season. We're your hosts, CD and Jeff. We're just a couple of athletic directors who interview interesting people in the world of sports in hopes of bettering our programs and developing our student athletes. This season, we've been focusing on interviewing athletic directors all around Asia, and today is no exception, except we have three today, and they're doing something quite interesting. So, Jeff, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guests for today?
Yeah, so for our final episode, we thought to do something different, something cool. And it's also very important to promote other people out there, other podcasts. So today we have a kind of collaboration between us, Athletics for Life, and the Sporting Direction podcast from Simon, Gavin, and Tavis. Some ADs out of China who started their own podcast on the directions you can get out of sports. There's so many jobs involved in sports, and they're having a new podcast. So we're very excited to share with them. They will ask us a few questions. We will ask them a few questions, and it's more like a roundtable discussion today.
Let's check them out in China.
That's fun.
All right. So we're recording. We're not sure exactly who's taking the lead here, but why don't we start off with just a little introduction about ourselves. I guess I'll start. CD Johnson, currently working at the British School of Ulaanbaatar. I'm the athletic director. I do wear many hats, so I have ECAs as well, or the after school activities, head of a department of PE, art, music, Chinese, ICT, basically all the misfit toys. And then most of my day is actually spent teaching chemistry at the high school at the IGCSE level. So I do teach some PE, some science. Last year I had a little bit of math. So I stay quite busy. Originally from the US, but been in Mongolia for coming up on a decade. So it's been good though.
Yeah, I'll go next. Sorry. Okay. So Jeff Koops from the International School of Ulaanbaatar. Not far from where CD is. This is my 5th year in Mongolia. Before that, I worked in China, so I know how to work over there. Been overseas for 8 years, originally from the Netherlands. Took a gamble and ended up overseas. Athletics director over here, also run the activities program. I don't teach, which is I'm lucky with that, but I host most of the events here in Ulaanbaatar, so busy with other stuff. And very happy to be here with you guys today to share our experiences with each other. So, Simon.
Yeah, thank you very much, gentlemen. Simon here representing the Sporting Directions team, made up of 3 of us who will introduce themselves in a moment. I'm originally from the UK. I've been overseas very short time compared to you two gentlemen, only 2 years. I'm currently teaching just outside Shanghai in a little school called North Anglia School Suzhou. And again, like yourselves, I'm an athletics director, or as we call it here, a director of sport, wearing many hats, a bit like CD. I'm also the ECA, ASA, CCA coordinator, the Duke of Edinburgh coordinator, the head of house, and anything else they would like me to do as we're slowly growing. As you know, it's like in any small school growing.
Definitely.
Hey guys, I'm Tavis Roberts. I'm originally from Australia. I'm over here in Suzhou at the Perth school, and I am the athletics director and ECA and lunchtime sort of coordinator. I've been on the international circuit for a little while. I first left Australia in 2006. And from there, I've had time in England, Dubai, Thailand, back to Australia, and finally in China. I've been in China for about 8 years now.
Hey guys, morning. Hello everybody. My name's Gavin Taylor. I'm the founding director of sport here at Harrow International School, Shenzhen, just like you guys. Many different hats, LSAs, sports, anything to do with academia, all the way through from EYC, all the way up to IGCSE. My 6th year abroad, so I did 4 years in an IB school in GEMS, leading the house system over there. I was also HOD as well. So thanks, guys. I mean, what we'll do from our point of view is kind of introduce ourselves in terms of, as Simon said, the team. So We've set up a podcast we're calling Sporting Directions. The idea is to hopefully showcase the variety of sports-based careers that we can offer in the world, and hopefully support some youngsters and young professionals out there thinking about how they can get involved in sport. As we know, there's loads of different sporting careers out there. So hopefully we're trying to reach out to groups of different people and show them that there are different routes into sport, and also show them that there's different careers and different ways that we can get in there. So thanks to the Athletics for Life team for spending some time with us this morning. Jeffrey, can you just tell us a little bit about, you said you're from the Netherlands. Why don't you talk just a little bit about your journey, buddy? Tell me a little bit more about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks, guy. How did I get it? Ended up here. Long story short, played sports my whole life. When I was a kid, it was a way for me to cope with all the stresses of being young, and it was not easy. Actually, I didn't speak a word of English till I was 17 years old, actually, to be honest. Learned it late. And I was working in the Netherlands at a IB school where I started teaching PE actually in English. I got all my training in that, and it got better and better. And in 2013, I was like, you know what? This is a job fair in London, and I'm just going. Just put up a suit and tie, went over there. And actually funny, I ended up in a job in China. And I still think that I got the job by showing up at the conference at 4 a.m. And the director of the school came out of the elevator to go for a run. And he saw me there, and he's like, what are you doing here? I said, I'm here for a job fair. He's like, what are you looking for? I said, well, PE or AD, or actually, I didn't really know what the AD role was back then. He said, okay, cool. I'm going for a run. I'll see you later. And actually, he came to me a few hours later, and he wanted to interview me. And I asked him why. Well, you have all the credentials, but you showed up at 4 a.m. I've never seen that. And I was like, okay. And then I got a job an hour later. And everybody back home thought I was crazy. Why are you going to China? Stay home. It's nice and cozy here. I'm from a very small town. Of course, we speak English, but it's very local. So it was a big step for me. But yeah, I took the gamble, and it worked out pretty well, actually. So short, and I played sports. My main sport, soccer, of course, being from Netherlands, but also tug of war. Rope pulling, which is not very known, but I competed, and actually the Netherlands is really good at it. European world champions. It's one of the best team sports there actually is, because once you're on the rope, if one person stops, the whole team is done. So I love it. And now I'm just keeping fit, keeping healthy, working in Mongolia, and doing podcasts on the weekends. So that's kind of my life right now. And so thanks for asking. CD, how about you, mate?
Yeah, so I grew up in the States, where sporting culture is huge. I mean, sports basically dominate the high school culture. I was not your typical athlete. I wasn't good with anything involving a ball. Basketball, soccer in the States, American football, to throw and catch was just completely outside my element. So I was a track star, cross country runner, got into wrestling, got my butt kicked for quite a while. And I had my mind set on being a veterinarian. I was also really smart. So I was kind of a mix of being athletic and a nerd. So I was like, okay, being a veterinarian, I'm smart. I love science. I love animals. That's the job for me. I know it. So I job shadowed at a vet, and we spent the entire day spaying and neutering cats and dogs. And it was just like, oh, it's not really like helping these poor defenseless animals. It's just basically a round robin of new dog, spay it, new dog, neuter it, just over and over. And it wasn't for me. So I had to kind of figure out, okay, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? And I've been blessed with just great coaches, great teachers. And so I'll just be a teacher. To be a teacher, most places don't really care where your degree's from. It's not a hyper competitive field like a business or a finance degree where you'd want to go to some top university. So it kind of gave me the freedom to go to some smaller schools. Found a small school in Southwest Minnesota that needed somebody at my weight class for wrestling. Went there, wrestled for 5 years, had a lot of success, and started teaching. Basically got a couple jobs from people I knew, connections, my reputation in Minnesota. Was able to coach, was able to teach. Great schools. I really do enjoy, or did enjoy those schools I was at, but they were in rural Minnesota. So really, really small towns. I was a young single guy. And for a young single guy, there's not a whole lot of adventure in a town of 1,000 people. So I started to get that itch of like, okay, I need something bigger. Let's do something crazy. And at the time I thought teaching in like Minneapolis, Minnesota would be so crazy. And then it was actually a friend of mine who had said she'd always thought about teaching English in Korea, which just was completely mind blowing for me. I didn't realize that this was even an opportunity or this was a thing. And so I got on the old Google machine and started looking, and then just sent out applications to the farthest corners of the world that I could. You know, I didn't want to go to a place like Australia or the UK or even, you know, Western Europe, because I thought it'd be too easy to fit in as an American. So I sent my application to, you know, the Middle East, to places all over Asia. Mongolia interviewed me. I thought, yeah, that's about as far away as I can go. It's the last destination in terms of airports and stuff. So yeah, I came here. I taught at the American school for 7 years as a science teacher, always coaching. And then as fate would have it, the athletic director had to leave partway through a year, and I got to step in that role as the athletic director. And then so for the last, I think, 4 or 5 years, I've been acting as an athletic director, still teaching a little bit of science now and then, teaching a little bit of PE. So it's been great. But yeah, pretty crazy journey. So here I am.
Nice. Thanks for sharing with that, buddy. Tavis, just out of interest, because I think both CJ and Jeffrey have shared their stories about kind of getting out and teaching abroad and leaving their respective home countries. And obviously that's happened to all of us. But I'm just I'd love to hear your story, Tavis. The reason why I say that is that obviously we're all PE teachers. So, you know, we're obviously trying to target our podcast to different groups of people who are looking at different sporting avenues. But what's really interesting about this kind of roundtable discussion is that, yes, we're all PE teachers, but we all kind of took a mini gamble. We all kind of went, oh, do you know what? I'm going to take this gamble. You know, Jeffrey there was talking a little bit about kind of his story and the gamble that he took and obviously the journey there. And obviously, CD, yours is completely different. You know, you went on Google and you thought, why not? You know, Jeffrey, you talked about, oh yeah, do you know, I went to a careers fair and thought, let's see what happens. And you got, you know, completely put into a lift with a guy at 4 a.m. You know, so Tavis, how did you, what's your story from Australia? How did you get abroad? Just so the listeners can hear a little bit about, you know, it doesn't matter what potential sporting background or sporting role that you're looking at, but there's definitely opportunities to teach away from your host nation.
Yeah. So my story was I went from university and my lecturers had always said, if you want to get a job, you have to go someplace else. So where I was living, where I went to university, was in a high demand sort of area. And so they always said, if you want to get back to that area or where you want to go, you have to go someplace else. And I ended up going inwards. I went into the middle of Australia. It was about 14, 15 hours drive away from my university. And I spent 3 years there. At that time, one of my friends was planning on going to England, and I'd never even thought about it. It was him. We were good friends over in university. He got me my first job as a swim coach, and he says, I'm going to London. I'm going to go teach. Do you want to come? And I'm like, okay, I'll finish up my contract and I'll see you there. And so at the end of the year, I moved everything just because of a friend that went over there. Funny story is that a week before I arrived, he went up to Newcastle. He got himself a job. Everything was set up. All I had to do was drop my bags, get a job at the school and stuff. No problems. Calls me up. He's like, Tav, I'm moving. I'm like, where are you moving to? He's gone, I'm moving to Moscow. I'm like, I can't move to Moscow, man. I don't. And so I arrived in London a week later without knowing anybody. And I found a couch that I could stay on through a friend of a friend sort of thing. Stayed there for a week. And yeah, from there, I just had to find my feet. Strange thing is, like, when I went over to London, there was no LinkedIn. Like, there wasn't this sort of network or connections that you can sort of tap into now, where On LinkedIn, you can find somebody in a location or a friend of a friend to build your network. But when I first started, you had to put in the hard yards. You had to go to places or apply directly to the schools. It wasn't as easy as it was today.
Nice, man. Nice. I mean, again, a different story, a different kind of. You went abroad. You went with a friend. You went with someone that you trust, and obviously, you know, for whatever reason, this particular person ditched you, went to Moscow, right? But again, you had to take that.
I at the British International School in Moscow.
Yeah, good school. But no, you had an opportunity. You didn't get scared. You thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. Simon, I'm interested in yours as well. The reason why I kind of left you to last, I wanted to ask Tavis. Obviously, Tavis being from a different part of the world from us, so I didn't know whether his experience is a little bit different. Obviously, for the listeners out there, me and Simon have been friends for a long time. Simon, I know you worked at a really good school for a long time. You obviously did really well in your career. Had lots going on in sort of the side in terms of your rugby and some of the other companies you were working for. So what made you decide to go, do you know what, I've had enough, I'm gonna take a move abroad? Was it there was a number of reasons. Well, I'm just curious to know why it was, because you were in a different situation than perhaps all of us. You were really settled and you know had a lot going for you in the UK. So what was your rationale for taking the move?
Yeah, thanks for that, Gavin. And before I start talking about my story, which I think you're right, is just slightly different to the others we've heard, is I know we're all coming from very different parts of the world. We're all coming with very, very different stories, but I've just been taking some notes down as we've been chatting, and the same theme keeps coming up. We all took the gamble, but more importantly is when we took the gamble, we showed up. We showed up prepared. Where networking is key. We all go the extra mile, and that's how I think we've all ended up where we are. We seem to be, or the story I seem to be coming back to, and the other guests that we've interviewed is, you know, if you want to get somewhere, you need to be prepared to put the hard work in. You need to be prepared to put the hard graft in. Nothing comes for free. And we spoke to a guest a while back that talked about having grit and taking that grit with you and doing everything you can to move forward. And I think if anyone listening to this is thinking of following one of the footsteps that we've laid behind us, I think any advice we'd all probably give to those individuals would be, be prepared to put the hard work in. And you will have good days, you will have bad days. I think we heard Tavis was sleeping on a sofa at one point. But if you keep putting the hard work in, you will end up where it is you want to be. But having that focus and knowing where you want to end up, I think is key. And that brings us back to my story. So a little bit of background is I played a bit of rugby. I did a bit of martial arts. So I was quite fortunate to be the British judo champion at a young age, under 12 and under 13 level. Unfortunately, I got bored. So I moved on to my next challenge and I discovered rugby. And I was very fortunate enough to play alongside some amazing individuals that went on to become fully internationals, professional players. I played for a professional club, Northampton Saints, and I was fortunate enough to play with England training squads. But again, I got bored. I wanted something else. I felt empty. So I moved into mixed martial arts, and I started doing Muay Thai and BJJ, and again went back to judo, and again I got bored. But all the way through all of this, I was finding that it wasn't boredom per se. It was more I felt empty. Something was missing. And I went through university not knowing what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be involved in sport. And the best advice I ever got was from my father, who's by the way my hero. And I think all of us maybe got similar advice or have developed this advice in our own way, which is do what you love what you do, and the rest will come. And that's what I've lived my life by. Do what I love what I do, and work hard. And that then led to me going into teaching, and I fell in love with it. And I haven't got bored yet. I keep it's one of those jobs where no one day is the same. Every day is different. Yes, your timetable's the same, but the children are different, and the children will come with different attitudes. The children will come with different stories, and that connection you have with the children and helping them through their learning journey is something that cannot be matched, in my opinion. And that's what I feed off. I feed off seeing these students progress and become something amazing. And I think we've all had that light bulb moment where we've seen the child that's very resistive to sport, doesn't like sport, has had a bad experience with sport somewhere else. But then after a short period of time with you or with your teams, they love it. And they run to PE. They walk and they dawdle to maths and science. Sorry, CD. But they run to PE because they're desperate to do that lesson. And when they hear that you're their teacher, they cheer, or they can't wait to get, or they're having races in the changing rooms to see who can change the quickest. That's something that can't be measured. That's something that, in my opinion, can't be matched with working in an office 9 to 5, or being a lawyer, or being an engineer. I'm sure other people love that job, but you know, I love my part. Back to why I moved away from the UK. So I taught in a very, very good school. It was an outstanding school for many years, oversubscribed school in Cambridge. And Cambridge is well known for education. We produced some fantastic sports teams, which were competing at the highest level. We went through several undefeated seasons in rugby and hockey and netball, and it was great. Life was good. We were winning award after award, AFP awards. I was very fortunate to be given a Teacher of the Year award through AFP. I was very fortunate to lead my passion, which was sports leadership, and we attained numerous accolades in that. But the reason I left was not actually professional; it was personal. I have a wife and 2 wonderful children, and my wife was an NHS nurse. And I don't know if you know much about nursing, but they work a lot of night shifts. And when you find that you haven't said more than 2 words to your wife in a month, because your only contact is, here's the children, it's your turn, swap, you realize that you're missing balance. And I think that's key to all of our lives, balance. It's great to have a fantastic career. And I advise anyone listening to this, if you've got a fantastic career and you've got a fantastic job, well done. And I'm sure that's come from hard work. But if your personal life isn't in balance with your professional life, then maybe it's time to take a gamble. Maybe it's time to look for something new. And that's exactly what we did. We went to a jobs fair, the TESS jobs fair in London, got the suit and tie on. And I will always say, always go dress smart, dress to impress. First impressions count. I remember walking around that room with people in shorts, flip-flops and T-shirts, thinking, how are you ever going to get a job? I had beads of sweat coming down my face because it was a very hot environment, a very hot part of the year. But I was very fortunate to find a job, an AD job here in China. And we were very excited, and then COVID hit, and all the flights got cancelled, and it was a very, very stressful, very worrying time. We'd already left our jobs in the UK, and we were waiting for a flight and permission to enter China. So for about 2 months, we lived with my parents, which is a difficult situation to be in when you left at the age of 18 and you hadn't been back since. But we finally got a flight. We got to China, and we haven't looked back. Shanghai was a fantastic place to be for our initial year. An opportunity arose to join the Great Nord Anglia workforce, and we had a very good relationship with the head teacher here, again through networking, and the rest is history. This is where we are, and I'm hit with all these new challenges, and you know what? I'm not bored. I've got a great work-life balance, and now I get the pleasure of working with Tavis and Gavin to share our experiences and to hopefully get the next generation motivated to move forward. Now, I do understand that Gavin's taken very much a lead on this trail of conversation, but I am also very interested in Gavin's story, because again, Gavin comes from the UK just like myself, but I know that his story is very different to mine. So Gavin, can you enlighten us into your story, how you ended up where you ended up?
Yeah, mine is a little bit similar to Jeffrey's, if you like, in terms of right place, right time, I guess. But I went to Liverpool, John Moores University. I did a 4-year QTS degree, where what was really good about my degree, and I really enjoyed Liverpool as a city, was that every year we were put on teaching placements, and they increased in length. So first year was 6 weeks, then it was 8 weeks, and whatever. The final year was a full term, so it was from September until sort of the January, February, and really enjoyed it. Big football school, big football fan, kind of was my passion. So really enjoyed the school, all boys. I was obviously a bit younger then. So, you know, it was great. I really connected with them, and they really liked me, and created a job for me to stay. So, which is obviously very flattering. I loved it, and I absolutely bit the hand off. So I stayed for a year, and then in my second year, I got offered school sports coordinator role. So back in those days, it was quite a big thing about trying to promote sport in different schools. So I had 3 sort of special needs schools that I worked with, a standard, a primary school, and then a PRU, which was really cool. A PRU is where students go where they're expelled or having a bit of a tough time. So really enjoyed that. I set up my own football academy there, and worked alongside Everton and things like that, which was wonderful, and had students working in the community and stuff. Became deputy head of year, so I went down to some pastoral sides of things. And then when after sort of 3 years, I wanted a new challenge, and I moved a bit closer to home. Head of boys PE, did 3 years there, really enjoyed it. Different experience. Rural school, so obviously mixed, completely different, sort of a village school that wasn't in a big city. And then a little bit like Jeffrey in terms of the opportunity. So I had an itch to move abroad. I'd done Camp America when I was 19, which I'm sure at some point in a podcast far away, we'll talk about the incredible opportunities for Camp America that I would certainly recommend for everyone involved in sport or interested in doing sport, regardless of the career path you wanted to go. And I had an itch, and a bit like you, Jeffrey, I flew to Dubai. It was where I wanted to go. A friend who I worked with, her daughter worked in a school, sent a couple of emails, asked to meet the head. The head walked me around. The head grew up around 15 minutes from where I used to live. So he knew all these people I knew, and I knew head teachers that I'd been working with. And then, yeah, kind of right place, right time, interviewed on the day, offered the position. And then turned up, and they needed someone to lead the house system, created from scratch, which was wonderful, gave me a project. After my second year, then became head of department, did 3 years there, and then wanted a new challenge again. So I had the opportunity I always wanted to work in a new school and stamp my own authority on things, and blank piece of paper and things like that. So obviously then had an opportunity to come and work here in China and for Harrow, which has been great. 2 years have been incredible experience, completely developed me and helped me develop as a leader, as a teacher, and things like that. And obviously then you look at other things, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, our rationale behind the Sporting Directions podcast, to try and pass on others. So Jeffrey, I'd love to know, just going back to that, what inspired you guys to set up the Athletics for Life podcast?
Yeah, should I start, CD? Yeah,
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, so now a lot of the things that you guys are talking about, I had the same. The word bored, Simon, I had the same. I did tons of sports when I was younger. And I think CD and I got a little bit, not bored, but in Mongolia, it's pretty isolated over here. We talk to each other a lot professionally, and there's not much else here. And we were like, why don't we just start a podcast? We always wanted to do something, and let's get it happening, you know? And it's not easy to start with. I remember the first time we started, I was so nervous, man. I'm still nervous for every podcast, to be honest. because I have to talk in a language, it's not my native language, right? So it's always difficult for me. But we just want to learn from other people. We want to give people a platform to share their experience, to share their story, and learn from that, so that anybody, ADs, PE teachers, students can learn something from that. It's a hard work, to be honest, running a podcast. A lot of extra hours. We are very lucky to have an editor, so that's amazing. I have to mention him, Scott Lillis. He's amazing. So I just send him all the raw footage, and he makes everything look awesome. And we've had some amazing guests. CD, would you want to talk a little bit more about the guests and the podcast?
Yeah. Jeff came to me and with this idea to start the podcast. He had been listening to the Globetrotting ADs. They had started theirs a year and a half before us, something like that. They had put out a bunch of episodes and said, hey, these guys are doing something that's really cool. I think we could do that too for our little corner of the world. And then we were like, okay, who should our audience be? Who are we talking to? And we've kind of kept it pretty broad. We started out thinking, let's talk to parents and athletes and ADs. And we kind of had this little drawing on a piece of paper of connecting those three to try to promote education-based athletics, or kind of the idea that you learn lessons through sports. And that's where we came up with our title, Athletics for Life. And that's kind of given us our guiding light forward, and just exploring how do we build those lessons into our programs, so that way when students leave, they take with them those values. And so we like to bring on alumni, former athletes from our schools, or from our conference, and just talk to them. What was your experience like? What do you remember? How is that helping you now? Those sort of questions and those sort of conversations. And then this season, we've been really focused on athletic directors around Asia, and just picking their brains about, what do you do in your program that makes your program special? So that way, the idea is that if we can get those ideas out there, one, it's going to benefit our program. So selfishly, we can, oh, that's a great idea, I'm going to do that. But also sharing them with, like Simon said, I don't know if it was recording or before we started recording, that he listens in the gym. And so, hopefully he's been able to take more than a thing or two away from us, that just ideas, they're not going to work perfectly, but you can shape them and form them to your own school or your own situation. So that's kind of been where we've taken our show, and the goal is the driving force between our podcast. I'm curious though, for you guys, I teach PE, I teach science, and I always have conversations with my kids about how, you might not take PE seriously, but of any subject, this is the one that's probably going to stick with you for the rest of your life. Eventually you're going to go to the gym. Eventually you're going to want to lose some weight. You're going to want to be more active. And I'm giving you those skills in PE class. So I try to approach PE like, okay, I'm teaching you something that you're going to take with you for the rest of your life. Where you guys with your podcast is similar, but you're going, I want you to get a career in this field. So if you don't mind, can you guys talk a little bit more about the goals and the purpose of your show, and how you're promoting that to your students, or potentially students worldwide?
Yeah, boys, if you don't mind, I'm happy to take or start this one off. One thing I do want to just pick on quickly, the similarities in what we do and what you do. But it comes back to that. I think that comes back, and this is a word that Tavis and Gavin know I talk about an awful lot, is that growth mindset. Finding that opportunities where others haven't even dared to look, and continually wanting to be better, continually wanting to make others better. And I will say that I think, for anyone wanting to start a podcast, or anyone wanting to go into education, I think you do certainly need to have a growth mindset, wanting to continually be better, wanting to make others better. Gav, Tavis, do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's great is, some of the things that you guys said there, CD and Jeff, is about how you sat down and kind of came up with these connections of how do we connect parents, teachers, and students together. And that's where you kind of, the idea blossomed from. It was similar to us in terms of the way we sat down. We didn't quite have that sort of connection in terms of the three that you had, but it was a case of going, well, what's the rationale? What's the purpose of setting one? And I think we all kind of came to the same conclusion, really, was that, the amount of times that you speak to a student and you'll say, what do you want to do when you're older? And they'll go, don't know. And you go, okay, have you got any ideas? No, but I like sport. And you find yourself going, okay. And then when you kind of dig a little bit deeper, the response is, well, I could be a PE teacher. Okay, what else? Don't know. There seems to be the kind of universal answer is all you can do from sport is be a PE teacher. And I think what we wanted to do was kind of showcase that and say, well, no, actually, there's 1,000,001 jobs out there involved in sport, and there's 1,000,001 stories to tell. And that's kind of where our connection came from. It's how can we connect students to the fact that there are a huge amount of sporting options and opportunities out there, and B, there's so many people that have got to these different positions in different ways. And you know, that's kind of evolved a little bit. And we also spent a little bit of time, I kind of want to mention a little bit before I pass on to Tavis here, is we talked a little bit about a kind of secondary focus of girls in sport, females. So I'm sure we're all kind of in agreement in our respective roles that, you know, female sport is something that has improved hugely over the last 10 years or so, but it's still something that there's perhaps a stigma behind it, or perhaps there's not enough opportunities, or maybe role models out there. But there are role models out there, as I'm sure all of us know. So we also really want to try and make sure that our podcast caters for young ladies of the world as well, and I'm sure you guys do the same in terms of your Athletics for Life. There's some wonderful female ladies out there that we all know of or hugely respect as well. So that was kind of something that we wanted to make sure that we covered, and we're going to have plenty of female guests as well. So Tavis, can you remember how we did kind of come to that? Was there anything I've missed off there? Is when we had those kind of, I remember it being a good couple of hours of a conversation. You know, is there anything that I've missed off where you think, yeah, we also talked about this, and we also wanted to make sure we emphasize this in terms of mission statements and things like that?
I think we did talk a lot about how there is a limited knowledge given to students either via career pathways or secondhand knowledge from friends or the internet of how to have a career in sport. And this means that students and parents themselves probably don't think that there's a lot of opportunities related in the sports industry, that once you become good at sports, you've only got one sort of career path. And so that's something that we wanted to change. Like you guys, we care about the students' health. We want them to, you know, develop healthy habits and get a skill set that they can enjoy for the rest of their life. And so if we can find ways for more students to find more opportunities within sport, we're also encouraging them to be healthy throughout their life. And I think it's a really good aim or mission to have, because like if you look at some of the numbers that are getting thrown around the world at the moment with like obesity and numbers, okay, like 2 out of 3 people are becoming obese as teenagers, or people are having increased sedentary time, meaning that they have 7 hours, 6 hours in front of a screen, okay? These are not sort of healthy lifestyle habits. And so if we can find a way where we can give students opportunities within a sport and develop a healthy lifestyle habit, then I think our aim is going to be one like ourselves to give direction for the students, and one like your podcast to say, if you can take up sport, you can also become healthier throughout your life.
I think one thing that's definitely come out of lockdown and all of the COVID restrictions we've had is we have had a large number of students or next generation that have not been as active as they would have been had schools been open, the opportunities, the restrictions. And I think in part, you know, like yourselves, we're all looking to hopefully, you know, come up with solutions to how we can get back to being active, get these students back to, you know, being involved in sport, loving sport. And I think whereas yourselves, you're tackling it from a very good point, which is we're looking to upskill ADs, upskill individuals already in those positions. We're coming at it from a slightly different perspective, we're looking at trying to maybe motivate and inspire those students who, I mean, majority of being out of formal or normalized education for nearly 2 years, if not more. And those students who still love sport haven't been involved in sport for, again, nearly or formalized, organized sport for nearly 2 years. So we are going to find that there's going to be this dip, and we want to do whatever we can as a group to kind of overcome that dip, and show to everyone that, you know, that there are opportunities. I mean, I think Tavis said it really, you know, Tavis and Gavin have both said it really, really well. We want to show everyone that sport is for everyone, regardless of culture, gender, you know, background. We want to show everyone that sport is for everyone. But more importantly, you don't have to become a professional sportsman to be involved in sport. You don't have to become a PE teacher to be involved in professional sport. You can be so many other things. And as we've had some of these conversations with our guests, we've actually discovered that there are a number of people who have already gone into those careers, professional sport or PE teaching or coaching. And they've actually changed their minds, or once they're in those professions, they've found that they want to expand, go somewhere else, or they've discovered from networking or being in that industry that the industry is far bigger than they ever thought. And some of the stories that have been shared with us are really inspiring about how professional sportsmen have made that transition into a career in sport, but in a different way. How we found that some PE teachers or ADs have discovered other facets of the industry and made that transition, taking the skills they've learned from professional sport, the skills they've learned from teaching into other careers. And then going back to the students, like you, I think PE is the greatest subject these students will ever do. I'm a little biased being an AD, but I dare any other subject to tell me that they can consistently teach children the characteristics, the attributes that they need to go forward in life and be successful. What other subject can teach you leadership, resilience, respect, resourcefulness in every single lesson? And those are the, as we know, those are the employability skills. Those are the skills that are going to see these individuals, these students, this next generation go on and succeed in whatever it is they choose to do, whether it be in the sports industry or not.
Oh, most definitely. Like, you know, I mentioned, and you kind of give me a hard time about it and how kids drudging their way to science, but I teach chemistry, and it's so true. You know, a handful of those kids understand it and are interested in it and might pursue a career in science. But for 75% of the kids in my chemistry class, they don't need to know the contact process and how to create hydrosulfuric acid. They got to know it for the test, but that's not something that they're going to put on their CV, or, you know, it's not necessarily going to help them 10 years from now. I wanted to pick up kind of where you're going, Simon, in terms of kind of identifying jobs and identifying careers related to sports. You know, we all have our own background in sports, whether it's competing at a high level or, you know, coaching. And like, just think back to some of those tournaments and some of those events and how many people it takes to pull off those events, especially at the highest level, at, you know, professional or semi-professional. You know, even something as simple or as unnoticed as the grounds. You know, like a professional groundskeeper at a golf course would be a great career for somebody who loves golf and wants to get their hands dirty and, you know, wants to ride around on the lawnmower for hours on end. You know, it might not be for everybody, but I can remember as a kid, I mowed lawns and there was no better feeling than just, all right, I'm just going to be on this mower for a couple hours, got my headphones in. You know, that's a career. All of us have had probably injuries at some point. We've needed to go see the physiotherapist and get our ankle taped up. And, you know, if you're somebody who maybe likes my science classes and likes my PE classes, that might be a career path for you. You know, looking at kind of a more medicine field, but instead of being, you know, a formal doctor in the hospital, you're a physiotherapist dealing with injuries and athletic injuries. Tavis, you mentioned obesity and all those stats. with people that are overweight or being sedentary. The fitness industry is combating that. So if you are passionate about, maybe being a teacher, but teaching formal education is not for you, if being a physical trainer or a nutritionist, to try to combat some of those things. I mean, I think you guys are doing a great thing, and there's so many avenues to explore for yourselves as far as guests go, but for any of your or our students that might be listening, there's so much more to sports than just being the professional athlete or being the coach. So yeah, I think what you guys are doing is just phenomenal, and you've got a lot of guests before you'll run out, I'm sure.
We really appreciate that, buddy. And the thing as well, as we were chatting about this the other day, actually, to kind of jump on that as well, not just about our podcast, but obviously yours as well, in terms of the things that you're talking about with ADs and the stuff that you're doing. There's jobs that are kind of creating as the world progresses. I mean, I remember when I was very fortunate to be involved at Everton Football Club, things like sports analysts, sports data collection, that wasn't around 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Now all the footballers are wearing, heart rate monitors, and they're able to track where they run and heat maps and all this stuff. And sport punditry is another one where 15 years ago, you wouldn't really care what you turn up to a football match or a volleyball match or a rugby match, Simon, or whatever, and you just go, oh, well, I've watched the game. You'd go with your friends, you'd sit and have some food after the match, you'd have a chat about it. You didn't really care what anybody else thinks. Now, you listen to videos, podcasts and things like that of experts talking about it. So what's exciting is that there's also new jobs kind of being created as we go through. I kind of want to ask you, either you, CD, or Jeffrey, either one, because again, I think Simon's points were great about some of the skills that you develop into adulthood, and sport helps do that. One he talked about was resilience and growth mindset. I kind of want to be a little bit blunt with you both, if you don't mind, and you can tell me to sod off if you like, but I'm sure if I was 14, 15, sitting and listening to the podcast, listening to your stories about how you both went to somewhere, Tavis, it's similar to you. What made you get on the plane? What made you go, do you know what? I'm moving to Mongolia. USA is an incredible country, as you said to yourself. You're going out of your comfort zone. What skills did you have, or where did you learn those skills to go, yeah, I have got the cojones, if you like, to do it? And obviously, Jeffrey, same as yourself, leaving the Netherlands, and what skill did you have, or where did you get that from? Because I'm sure the listeners are listening now going, hang on a minute, you moved to Mongolia from the USA, thousands of miles away. I don't think I could do that. So how could you inspire people listening to it to say, no, you could, and this is how?
Sure, I'll jump in real quick and then pass it off to Jeff. For me, I came from a very, very small town, very small community in Michigan in the United States. Lovely place to go back to. I still have a lot of friends there. But as I was getting older, I noticed that most people, as I'm sure it's similar with most small towns around the world, is a lot of kids went to the same college. They moved back in a mile away from mom and dad. And then nothing really changed. Nothing changed. So when I was looking for colleges, I was looking for a college that had an education department and needed somebody at my weight class. I was good, but I wasn't that good. And in Michigan, they only had Division I schools. They're the biggest schools. So it kind of forced me to say, like, okay, if I want to wrestle, I've got to move away from home. Ultimately landed on a school in Minnesota, 12-hour drive from home. And so, at the age of 18, I had to move away from parents, move away from friends, move into something that was totally new and kind of establish myself. And for me, and I've had this conversation with some students a lot, it gave me the opportunity to present myself in a way that was more reflective of how I viewed myself. When you go through high school and you've got your group of friends, your classmates are going to see you in a very particular way. And that might be who you are, and it might not, right? They might see you in a totally different light to how you believe you yourself to be, whether you believe yourself as a risk taker and your classmates see you as a shy kid who doesn't speak up much, or whether you believe yourself to be, really athletic and smart, but you're like myself, my classmates saw me as more the nerdy kid who played the flute in the band, right? So by moving far away, I was able to just be who I wanted to be, as corny and cliche as that sounds. And then as I was teaching in the States and thinking about, do I really want to move internationally? Do I really want to, go to this place where I don't know anybody? It was kind of that happening all over again. I had mentioned I got jobs because of connections I had in my reputation, and I wanted to go somewhere where I was getting the job based on me being good at my job, not because I knew somebody. So it was kind of that same thing of, all right, I get to prove myself all over again. I get to just kind of shift again into being more who I want to be, as a professional, as a person. And so that's why I kind of took that jump and decided, let's do something crazy. So I think, I don't know if you guys can hear the kids in the background, but that's my cue to pass it off to Jeff.
Yeah, you can just, you can mute yourself, CD. No, it makes it's similar for me. I've learned from a young age, in Holland it's very easy. You go to your high school, you go to work, and that's your life. And from a young age, I always suffered a lot. And I knew at one day I wanted to make myself proud of who I am, and my father and my uncle, who are two businessmen, and I look up to them. And, being from the Netherlands and in this world where you guys are from the US, Australia, UK, I'm 2 points behind, and I know that. So I have to work double as hard. And, I'm not the smartest, unlike CD, I'm not, but I can do one thing, and that's outwork everyone. So for everyone, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And CD knows that. I put a lot of time in everything I'm doing. And, patience. You need to be able to watch grass grow. Just sit down and watch it grow. If you can do that, you can do anything you want. And that's something I've learned even in the AD role. There's always something you can do better. There's always someone who will complain about something you're doing wrong, parents or students. But if you put the effort in, no one can tell you anything. Because if you put 100% effort in, then things will go wrong, but they go wrong. But no one can tell you, like, you didn't try. Because I don't believe in that. You should always try to work as hard as you can. And that's just something I got from a kid. If you're being told in primary school you're not good enough, you should go to a special school for special kids. At one point, something clicks and you just like, screw everyone. I'm going to work and I'm going to show you. So that's what I've done. And I think that's been, with everything I'm doing right now and the podcast and my work and living overseas, that attitude has helped me a lot, and it can help anyone looking into a career in sports. You don't have to be the professional athlete, like CD said. You can do something else, and that's what I've tried to do. I knew from a young age I'm not going to be a professional athlete. Like Simon said, I got bored too fast. I was playing baseball pretty high, just too boring for me. Sitting down on a bench for half the time and then go on, and I was like, let's do something else. And actually, it helped me a lot. Doing multiple things, learning a lot of different skills, and just go for it. And, sometimes you have to be a bit lucky. Just that's life. Luck is part of it. But you can actually do something about that. Like showing up at 4 a.m. was a bit of luck, but it also just was because I learned those skills. Be there on time, be there early, and nothing will interfere with that. If I would have spilled some coffee over my shirt, I had time to go home and to get a new one. So it's those preparation skills that prepared me for everything. So you guys, what are some of your goals for the podcast in the near future? I would like to hear about that.
Tavis, do you want to have a go at this one?
Yeah, why not? Yeah. I think some of our goals is just to get the word out there as much as we can, that if you want to be involved in sport, and you're not a professional athlete, there are still opportunities for you. Like, you don't have to be confined to a set direction or a set pathway. That if you really want to, as you said, like, work hard for it, you will find the opportunities. You'll find a way to, not only survive, but thrive. You'll be able to make a career of it, get paid for it, be happy with it, okay? And then when you go home at night, and you can feel fulfilled and satisfied. Like, I think that's one of the goals that we want to get out.
I think the other thing we're really trying to get out is to kind of make everyone understand, or help everyone understand, that again, PE is an important subject. It is a very important subject, because we are teaching those attributes that have come up throughout this entire conversation. You know, that desire to want to prove yourself, that work ethic, which I think every person in this conversation has clearly got and is clearly shown time and time again, that work ethic. But also the attributes that translate into other things. Again, it's that resilience, that empathy, timekeeping, as we've heard from Jeffrey, and just to show everyone that, you know, if you maybe aren't the best rugby player, football player, badminton player, baseball player, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean, some of the greatest coaches I ever had never made it professional, because they had to look at it in a different way. They had to look at it more technically. They had to try harder, because they weren't, you know, genetically predisposed to be the next Maradona. I think he's a perfect example of one of the greatest players in the world ever, but couldn't coach, couldn't manage, or not to any high level, because he didn't have to think about it in the same way we did. So anyone listening to our podcast who's thinking, I'm not good enough, I'm not as good as, I can't make the A team for rugby or football, therefore I can't enter this industry. We're hoping they're going to hear the podcast and hear that you don't have to. There are opportunities that go beyond your mere physical ability to play said sport. If you've got an interest, if you've got a passion, if you've got a desire, there is a direction for you in this industry. And we're going to do the best we can to signpost those directions, to give you a map to those directions, to those outcomes, and help you realize that, you know, you can achieve anything in this industry, but all you need is that desire and that work ethic. And we will hopefully help provide, as we've just said, the direction, the roadmap to help you get there. And that's kind of what we kind of keep going back to. Whenever we start thinking about, I mean, we've not even started series 1 yet. We've been throwing around ideas for series 2 and series 3, but we do just keep coming back to that point where we are providing direction. And that's where the name Sporting Directions came from. We are providing direction to anyone that wants to enter this industry.
Yeah, I just second that as well. Just exactly what Simon's saying and Tavis is saying, really, is that trying to get as many different sporting careers on our podcast as possible, to show people that, you know, there are millions of them out there that perhaps you wouldn't even realize. You know, one of our guests, we're looking at getting a guest in who is involved in sports clothing. You know, a kind of situation where you're thinking, wow, I didn't even consider that is an important aspect of sport, but it's huge. If you think about, I mean, we talked about tug of war today, we've talked about wrestling, we've talked about rugby, we've talked about golf. You think about the different sporting clothing that you need, the specialists, right? What an incredible thing to talk about, that perhaps someone listening going, oh, hang on a minute, I quite like fashion, or I'm into clothing, but I really like sport. That's one that they might not have even considered. That might be the spark that lights up in their head that goes, actually, I didn't even realize that was a path I could even go down, let alone listening to someone that's going to tell me how they did it, you know? So, and there's hopefully loads that, as our podcast grows, will come out from that. So, yeah, just to kind of reiterate both the points that Tavis and Simon made. So, Jeffrey, Celia, really appreciate your time jumping in. What we like to do at the end of every podcast is we've got a sentence that we like to ask our guests that we'd love you to ask in. I'll ask mine first. If Jeffrey, you wouldn't mind answering it, and then CD, you can answer it after that. And then I'm sure Tavis and then Simon will jump in and kind of round it off. But Jeffrey, just if you wouldn't mind going first, mine is always, what one sentence or phrase would you say you live your life by?
Ooh, I was wondering if CD could go first, but I think I should go first.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No worries, man. For me, it's not like a sentence. It's more like, when I'm old and I don't want to look back and if I just had this, done this, it's very easy to stay at a place and just live your life in a cycle, and same over and over. And people are happy with that. I'm not judging that at all. For me, I just want to look back, and I've pushed myself to the absolute limits that what I can do, and I can be happy with that. And as long as you do that, you have to have the mindset for it. I think you can reach anything you want, and if I can do it, anyone can do it. And that's something I share also in our podcast. I don't talk much in the podcast. My job is to ask the right questions, but if I can do it, anyone can do it. And that's something that a lot of our guests talk about too in their podcast. The messages that they share with us. CD and I've learned so much from that, and I hope others too. Like if I look back, I was just reflecting this week and preparing for next year. The amount of stuff that I have in a folder from guests on the podcast that I'm using actually right now in our programs is amazing. And it's making our lives much easier, our kids' lives easier, the coaches' lives easier. And I think we're also doing a great service for Mongolia in general, which is kind of the reason we started. CDCD talked about educational-based athletics, which is not very good over here on the local side of sports in Mongolia. So we try to just, do our part and be that one grain of sand that has an influence here, has a ripple effect in Mongolia. And that's just why we do what we do, and we keep doing what we're doing. So CD, now your turn, mate.
All right. My one sentence, I guess what came to mind is actually a tattoo that I have that says Amat Victoria Karam. It's Latin, that roughly translates to victory favors those who take pain. And so when you kind of analyze it, or you look into like, okay, what does that actually mean? It means that winning isn't guaranteed, right? It's going, sometimes you'll win, sometimes you'll lose, whether it's in sport or in life. But if you're willing to prepare and grind and have that grit that I think Simon mentioned at the beginning of the show, then the odds of you winning or the odds of you finding success go up. So be willing to suffer a little bit and kind of put yourself through it. And like we mentioned, many of us, Jeff showing up at 4 a.m., all of us wearing a suit and tie, just be prepared. Right. And then you're more than likely to find that success. So that would be mine. Amat Victoria Karam.
Love that. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for answering that. I'm going to pass you over to Tavis. I know Tavis has got a nice, interesting one for you.
Okay, I'll shoot. It doesn't matter who goes first. What strange habit or skill that you have that has helped you on your path or direction in your industry?
Well, OCD.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am OCD with everything I'm doing. I got better at it because you cannot control everything. There's things you cannot control. So learning to deal with that. But I just want to control everything. And if I'm doing something, I do it well. Like Simon and I have been in contact. We make sure that we follow up. The time is correct. I'm just checking everything. And that's just me. I wash my hands 20 times a day. Maybe that's also part of it. But I think having that self-management skills, like I'm not the smartest. I already said that. But management, I can do that. I know exactly what's going on from A to B, A to Z on a daily basis. And for me, it's OCD, 100%, in a good way.
Nice. CD?
Yeah, odd skills or habits. That's a tough one. Because I'm definitely an odd character. I feel like, I don't know if it's that odd or that strange, but I think just never taking myself too seriously. I think that gains a lot in the kids' eyes, the kids that we deal with. When you don't stand up there and preach to them, but you actually talk to them. You can make jokes about not having much hair on the top of your head. Then you're better suited to have those conversations about, hey, you should check out taking this career path in terms of sports, or giving them that advice on what university they should look into, or what do you think they should do? Or if you're constantly preaching at them and taking everything really, really seriously, then it's going to turn off a lot of kids. So I think for me, that odd or strange habit would just be, being able to just kind of crack a joke even at my own expense sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just touching on what you just said, CD, I'm hoping that's the attitude a lot of ADs are going to have after hearing our podcast. You know, oh, why don't you go check this podcast out? You know, they're giving you, you know, possible opportunities. So that's another reason why we've kind of started this. Anyway, sorry, my fun question that I like to ask at the end of every session. So again, back to the careers side of things. If you weren't in the sports industry, if you weren't doing a sporting career, what else do you think you might be doing right now?
Oh, good one.
That's for either of you.
PD, do you have one or not?
Well,
Okay.
when you first started your question, I was like, okay, I would do this, I would do this, I would do this. And you said, well, if you're not in the sporting industry, like, then it was like, I don't know.
Okay, let's bring it back to
I guess I enjoy writing. If I wasn't so involved in sports, and I had more time, I would love to write fictional novels about whatever. I got a couple ideas that I've thrown around in my head. Probably will never happen, but if I ever step away from, you know, weekends in the gym, then maybe. So I guess that would be mine.
Yeah, I got some time to think, but I don't think I have anything actually. I doesn't matter what it is, but something connected to sports. It's just I like helping people, and I like to see extreme people doing extreme things, and just to be part of that. Just have that feeling of, you know, you're part of a big community doing something good for people. And I don't think because sports actually it saved me when I was a kid. So I don't think there was anything else that I could have had the opportunity to live the life that I'm having right now. It's because of sports that I am here, that I learned English, that I took that chance, took that gamble. So it's not the right answer, but I don't have an answer for you. I don't think there was anything else. I probably would have worked with my uncle or something, or my dad, or some local job, you know, being in my little hometown, just living the cycle. And it wasn't for me. So it was a way out, really.
That's a great one to end on. To hear that sport has given you both direction and you see no other direction, it just shows the power of this industry. So from myself, Tavis, and Gavin, the sports direction team, we'd just like to say, gents, thank you ever so much for taking part in this roundtable conversation. We've learned a lot, and I'm sure anyone listening will have learned a lot as well.
Yeah, thanks a lot,
definitely.
guys. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, definitely. Same back to you guys, and
Same, guys.
you know, best wishes. I think what you're doing is really important and really great. So thanks for having us on, and thanks for coming on our show. I guess it goes both ways.
Yeah, thank you guys so much, and I wish you all the best with your podcast. We will heavily promote it. We will do everything to help you guys. It's fun. It's fun to talk to these people and to learn from them. And like I said, you drop your own ego, listen to these people, and take points away from them. It's just what it's all about. And I've been really enjoying our podcast doing it, and also listen to other podcasts. That's some amazing podcasts out there. I was just listening this morning to Scott Garvis, CD, who has a new podcast, actually. These people are amazing, and they share so much that we can learn from. So drop your ego and listen to the podcast. So the Sporting Direction podcast, right? I wish you guys all the best, and I'm going to follow you guys and share it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. And congratulations, Jeffrey, on featuring in the DNA of AD's book that has just come out. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, man, I don't know what to say. I post that. It's like going to, you know, like you're saying, actually, to a job fair in shorts and flip-flops. I felt like that, like so out of touch. So yeah, you know, great to be very humbled, but you know, you learn. It's all through our podcast. We learn, you know, about Scott Garvis, and you know, we asked him, get on our podcast. This is a guy who's huge in the US, and he just comes on and shares. So, you know, I'm just thanking everybody who's been our guests this year and last year to be our guests. And, you know, we appreciate, I think you guys do that too. We appreciate everybody who comes on and willing to share. It's not easy to share your stuff. I don't like it, to be honest, but that's why I like to do a podcast and just talk to people, just ask them questions, and instead of talking myself, because I don't really like it. But thanks again, guys. It's highly appreciated. And we've gone over an hour already, which is amazing. Will be a great little podcast. And thanks again.
Yeah, it's nice to know. You're right. We're nothing without our guests. So, thank you to our guests. And we've had a huge amount of people come forward volunteering their time and their stories. So I think you're right. The guests mean everything. So any of them listening, thank you for coming forward and sharing your stories.
Definitely. Well, thanks guys, and best of luck. All right, so we just wrapped up our interview / collaboration with the guys from Sports Direction. What a great concept for a podcast. I remember when we first started talking about ours and, how are we going to do this? What's going to be our focus? We knew we wanted to promote sports and those life lessons, but, who's our podcast for? Is it for the athletes? Is it for the coaches? Is it what direction do we want to take it? And I think the direction that they're taking theirs is just, it's in retrospect, it seems like an obvious choice. Like there should be 10 podcasts like that already. And they realize that there's none out there. And exactly. So, nothing but best wishes for them for identifying something that kids can use, kids can listen to. And, what greater lesson as a PE teacher when you got a rainy day and you're stuck inside and somebody's using the sports hall or the gym and you got to do something, then, hey, let's just put on an episode of Sports Direction and share that with the class. And, by the end, you've sat through half hour, 40 minutes of interviewing somebody in the world of sports and how they got that career. Overall, my big takeaway was just in hindsight, it seems like an obvious choice or an obvious thing, but at the moment it can be hard to come up with, and they nailed it, I think. So
yeah, exactly.
Great on them.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. It was not really an interview. It was more we asking them a question, they asking us a question, and we were actually chatting before the recording and actually afterwards too, and we just winged it. And it's it shows you that people who are like-minded, when you sit together in a room or on a Zoom chat, it just flows, and it was great. I always find it hard to share about myself because we always interview people to make the guests welcomed and we ask them the questions. So it was a bit the other way around this time, but it worked really well. It's just great. We connected through LinkedIn. They liked our podcast, which is always great to hear that there are people out there who like what we are doing. We just try to interview people and to learn something from them and to steal their best ideas, actually. So it's great. Their podcasts seem very interesting, and they can get so many guests on their podcast because the concept allows for that. We stress sometimes, CD, on what to do next season or what to do this season or get guests, but they have such a good concept that can already guide them for 20, 30 podcasts. It's easy. And they're actually doing 4 or 5 recordings a day, which we've never done. So, props to them. Wish them all the best. My main takeaway is we've heard all our background stories and they're all different, but all pretty similar. There's a few things in common. And one thing that I found very in common is just a little bit of luck sometimes, but also, you can work really hard to make the luck a little bit less, And we all have different stories, but we all found our path. And, it's just inspirational just to never give up and find your own path. So again, thank you so much, guys, for this collaboration. We said 30 to 40 minutes, got a bit longer, but it was a great interview.
Yeah, definitely. And if you take nothing else away from our podcast or their podcast, or even this interview, Simon just reached out to us and said, hey, I'm kind of new to this whole AD thing. Really like what you guys are doing. And then we're like, yeah, you should come on the podcast. And then he's like, yeah, we're starting our own podcast. And then, like you said, just sitting down with like-minded people, you can explore ideas and delve into, how you do things, steal their ideas, share your ideas. Yeah. And the conversation just flows. So if you're in a school, especially in the international setting where it might feel like you're kind of on an island or struggling by yourself, just reach out through LinkedIn or within your conference. If you have an international conference, just reach out to some of those ADs and bounce some ideas off them. Or, if you've got a problem at your school of the after school program, or how to manage the sports hall timings, like just reach out to other ADs that are already doing it or have done it. Because most of these guys are more than willing to share and have tons of great ideas.
Yeah, that's amazing. And there's so many great podcasts out there, mentioning a few, Beyond the Bench podcast, or the DNA of an AD podcast. There's so many out there that you can learn from. Back in the day, you have to look up for information or go to training, or now you just Apple Podcast or Spotify or YouTube, and you listen to podcasts, steal some ideas, and make your program better. So we also want to thank all of our viewers, people who like what we're doing. For our second season is finished, and we really enjoy it. It's stressful sometimes, but we try to give you as much content as we can to share, so that we all can learn from each other. And it's our pleasure. We will continue next year. We're going even stronger next year, and it was a real pleasure to upload all these amazing interviews for you all, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure to like and subscribe, so that way after our summer break is over, you don't miss that first episode of season 3. Thanks a ton, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.